Democracy and capitalism in Europe. Democracy is a system of governance where government is elected based on majority votes. Note that rich and poor had same voting rights unlike the olden times in Roman Greek where the rich people's votes carry more weight than the poor ones. The primary features of our democracy are equality before the law, respect for human rights, freedom to follow the religion one wants, no caste race differences, no differences based on sex, money, or power, freedom of expression. Capitalism is correctly called the free market. It means civilians, as opposed to government, own property and therefore fund the economy. The main alternative is socialism, which means the government owns factories and resources and therefore controls what products are made and so on. The word capitalism was actually invented by Karl Marx, the founder of communism, a cousin of socialism. He meant is as an insult because according to him in a free market money is really in charge, not people.
Now we're going to mention three important cases of the democracy and capitalism in Europe. The first one is the Enlightenment. European politics, philosophy, science, and communications were radically reoriented during the course of the long 18th century. As part of a movement referred to by its participants as the Age of the Reason or simply the Enlightenment thinkers in Britain, in France, and throughout Europe questioned traditional authority and embraced the notion that humanity could be improved through rational change. The Enlightenment produced numerous books, essays, inventions, scientific discoveries, laws, wars, and revolutions. The American and French revolutions were directly inspired by the Enlightenment ideals and respectively marked the peak of its influence and the beginning of its decline. The Enlightenment ultimately gave way to the 19th century Romanticism. The early Enlightenment, from the 1600s to the 1700s. The Enlightenment's important 17th century precursors included Englishmen Francois Bacon and Thomas Hobbes, the Frenchman René Descartes, and the key natural philosophers of the scientific revolution, including Galileo, Kepler, and Leibniz. Its roots were usually traced to the 1680s England, where in the span of 3 years Isaac Newton published his Principia Mathematica and John Locke his essay concerning human understanding, two works that prove scientific, mathematical, and philosophical toolkit for the Enlightenment major advances. Locke argued that human nature was mutable and that knowledge was gained through accumulated experience rather than by accessing some sort of outside truth. Newton's calculus and optical theories proved that the powerful Enlightenment metaphors for precisely measured change and illumination were bad. There was no single unified Enlightenment. Instead, it is possible to speak of the French Enlightenment, the Scottish Enlightenment, and the English, German, Swiss, or American Enlightenment individually. Enlightenment thinkers often had very different approaches. Locke differed from Hume, Rousseau from Voltaire, Thomas Jefferson from Frederick the Great. Their differences and disagreements through emerged out of the common Enlightenment themes of rational questioning and belief in progress through dialogue.
The second is the Industrial Revolution. Britain is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Before the advent of the Industrial Revolution, most people resided in small, rural communities where their daily existence revolved around farming. Life for the average person was difficult, as incomes were meager and malnourishment, and diseases were common. People produced the bulk of their own food, clothing, furniture, and tools. Most manufacturing was done in homes or small rural shops using hand tools or simple machines. A number of factors contributed to Britain's role as the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. For one, it had great deposits of coal and iron ore, which proved essential for industrialization. Additionally, Britain was a politically stable society, as well as the world's leading colonial power, which meant its colonies could serve as a source for raw materials, as well as a marketplace for manufactured goods. As the demand for British goods increased, merchants needed more cost-effective methods of production, which led to the rise of mechanization and factory system. Innovation and industrialization. The textile industry in particular was transformed by industrialization. Before mechanization and factories, textiles were made mainly in people's homes, with merchants often providing raw materials and basic equipment and then picking up the finished product. In the 17,000s, a series of innovations led to ever increasing productivity, while requiring less human energy. For example, around 1764, Englishman James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny, a machine that enabled an individual to produce multiple spools of threads simultaneously. By the time Hargreaves died, there were over 20,000 spinning jennies in use across Britain. The spinning jenny was improved upon by British inventor Samuel Compton's spinning mill, as well as later machines. Another key innovation in textiles, the power loom, which mechanized the process of weaving cloth, was developed in the 1780s by English inventor Edmund Cartwright. Developments in the iron industry also played a central role in the Industrial Revolution. In the early 18th century, Englishman Abraham Darby discovered a cheaper, easier method of producing cast iron using a coke-fueled furnace. In the 1850s, British engineer Henry Bessemer developed the first inexpensive process for mass production of steel. Both iron and steel became essential materials, used to make everything from appliances, tools, and machines to ships, buildings, and infrastructure. The steam engine was also integral to industrialization in 1712. Englishman Thomas Newcomen developed the first practical steam engine. By the 1770s, Scottish inventor James Watt had improved the Newcomen's work, and the steam engine went on to power machinery, locomotives, ships during the Industrial Revolution. Industrialization moves beyond Britain. The British enacted legislation to prohibit the export of their technology and skilled workers. However, they had little success in this regard. Industrialization spread from Britain to other European countries, including Belgium, France, and Germany, and to the United States. By the mid-19th century, industrialization was well established throughout the western part of Europe and America's northeast region. By the early 20th century, the US had become the world's leading industrial nation.
The Wealth of Nations in 1776. During the second half of the 18th century, visible changes are occurring in Britain as a result of the developing Industrial Revolution. Where previously land has been the traditional source of wealth, and the purchase of land the natural investment for anyone with spare fortune, money is now being put into manufacturing enterprises. In 1771, the greatest of the new entrepreneurs, Richard Arkwright, opens the first custom-built and water-powered cloth mill at Cromford. In the same decade, the investment of another entrepreneur, Matthew Bolton, shows signs of prospering. He has put money into the manufacture of James Watt steam engines. The first batch are delivered to their purchasers in 1776. The wealth of nations is being diverted into new and productive channels, in a process which will lead eventually to the emergence of a society organized on capitalist principles. The process is observed with a clear analytical eye by Scottish philosopher Adam Smith. In the year when Bolton and Watt delivered their first engines, Smith publishes a treatise which becomes the definitive statement of classical capitalism and free market. The conclusion of this video is that Europe nowadays is one of the most important regions in the world, and at the end of the 19th century it wasn't so much different. Because of the early development and in government, technology and industrialization, European countries were able to conquer many countries all around the world, expanding the liberal thinking.